We call to order the meeting for January 14th, 2016, in the Zoning Board of Appeals for the City of East Hampton. We have some administrative things to take care of first. We have a public speak time. If there's anyone here from the public who is interested in speaking in anything that is not already on the agenda for this evening. Okay. And then we have the approval of the minutes from the December 15th, 2015 meeting.
Make a motion, we approve.
All right. All in favor, or second?
I'll second
Okay. And all in favor?
it.
Okay.
And I want to say, Jamie, you do an excellent job at minutes.
Thank you. It was quite a few pages.
Yes.
Real details.
All right. Are there any correspondences or any requests from other boards and committees?
There was, I think, a decision from the planning board.
Okay.
And there was a conflict of interest packet because it's the new year and all city officials are being asked to
Mm-hmm.
sign it and return it to the personnel department if you want to sign it
City
and leave it.
clerks or something.
Personnel, but if you want to sign it and leave it with me, I will make sure that it gets to that
Okay.
department.
Okay.
All right.
All right. And then we have the review of the zoning ordinance regarding farm animals, chickens.
And the Board of Health agent is not here right now.
Okay.
So maybe she'll show up at some point.
Okay. If not, then we will continue on our merry way.
Mhm.
Okay. Our first hearing this evening is, and please forgive me on the pronunciation, Audrey Havonen.
Wonderful job.
Okay. Wow.
I'll give it to you.
I got a name. Of 62 Briggs Street, East Hampton, seeking a special permit under zoning ordinance 10.4 of the East Hampton zoning ordinance to permit a major residential home occupation. Subject property is located at 62 Briggs Street and zoned residential, suburban B, R10. Okay, so if you would like to come up and present your case, we'd like to hear about it.
Okay, do I sit down? Do I stand up?
However you'd like, however you feel comfortable.
I'll sit down.
Okay.
I didn't prepare a speech because I did prepare a letter that I sent out to all of you ahead of time that details
Yep.
quite thoroughly what I think the highlights are. I'll just pull points from that.
Okay.
I am a quilter and I plan to offer quilting lessons and occasional small format, like 6 people or less, workshops in the studio that I'm creating in my current garage.
Okay.
It's closer to the functional stage than it ever has been before. It now has heat and electricity. And as soon as I get the floor painted, I can move in my machines and tables. And I'm seeking a special permit because the building inspector said I needed to, because I would be having more than 2 people parking when I had 6 people visiting for a workshop, if that was permitted. I gave copies of this letter to all of my neighbors and heard back from 4 of the 8 of them that they were thrilled with this idea and very excited, and that they couldn't be here tonight to support me, but they wanted to voice their support to me personally. We have a pretty quiet street. The machines I use are pretty quiet as well. I think the largest risk of me bringing this business into my neighborhood is that 64-year-old women might be up late at night sewing.
So it's dangerous.
I hope that my neighbors will join me in that endeavor and will be delighted. The main concern, I think, would be parking, and also I would love an extension of allowable working hours, as is noted on the second page. Most specifically for those late night sews that people like to go to at quilt shops while the rest of their family is watching football. That tends to be the timing. So it's often on weekends or in evenings. I myself am not a night person, so I don't think that would happen too often unless it's really popular, in which case I would
Okay.
offer it a little more often, because I think it might be a decent source of income.
Mm-hmm.
I did include a little drawing of the property so that you could see where the parking is available and where there's potential parking. In addition, there is on-street parking. It's unsigned on our street, so it's, people park on both sides all the time. But we do have grass along the edge of the street that we do have people park on when we have guests over. But we do have a paved driveway that easily holds 4 cars and less easily 6 cars.
Okay, and there's no sidewalk in that area?
And there's no sidewalk, that's
Okay,
across the street.
It's, okay,
Yep.
all right. And, are you gonna have any retail component to what you're doing?
I do make quilts as well as repair quilts. At this point, the selling that I do is on Etsy, so it's an online service.
Mhm.
And also in shops, so I have pieces in Montague and South Deerfield and in East Hampton shops, but I wouldn't have a retail section on site.
Okay, all right.
Are there bathroom facilities gonna be put in the garage, or people have to use the house?
People would have to use the
Okay,
house.
so it's-
And I think the only time that would be an issue would be for a longer
Right.
workshop. I mean, if it was a 2-hour workshop, people might think to use it at home. Longer than that, I would
But
make
if they're
sure
gonna
that
be
it's
there
available.
from 4 o'clock till midnight,
They would use the bathroom.
And it goes that late, it would go later in the evening like that?
Well, Southampton Quilts currently, and they're going out of business right now by the end of this month, they offer like a Friday night sew, which is a 6 to midnight. So I know that that market is there and they're losing their source. So I personally hate staying up past 10 o'clock.
I'll say that's kind of, to me, that would be
But
late, but.
I would do it once a month if there was a demand for it.
Mhm.
And I do, like when I quilt and I travel for a retreat, there's definitely people that stay up until midnight. There's other folks that get up at 6 AM and the retreat space will be open all the time. I wouldn't host that kind of retreat in my home, but I know that there's a market for that in the quilt world.
there are only 2 cars regularly at the house.
Correct.
Because my only concern about this is parking. And how often you'll have more than 1 or 2 people there, you know, on the street. And particularly this time of year with snowplows and,
Yeah, this time of year, it wouldn't hold more than 1 or 2. So that would be more the day-to-day traffic of someone dropping off a quilt for a repair and then coming back the next week to pick it up.
but you teach classes, you said.
I would like to teach classes in the future, and I need to have a special permit to allow that.
Right.
But I wouldn't schedule them during times when it wouldn't be accessible.
And your narrative says 2 non-resident employees. Do you plan on having other employees or just you?
I plan on just myself.
Okay, so that's,
The-
we don't have to
That's-
worry about those cars then.
Well,
Okay, so-
and my understanding of reading that would be that, you know, that is long-term wish goal, but it's there to cover yourself in case it happens.
The,
The non-resident employees.
oh, yes, and that's because it's detailed in the ordinances that you're only allowed to have 2 or less. And so I said I would only have 2 or less.
But if she's
Less.
not having any, then I feel more comfortable with the parking. That's all I'm saying.
Right.
Yeah,
No.
I can't afford employees, I'm barely meeting it myself right now, so
Mhm.
that's not a risk yet.
And it's not, I went by and it's not a big garage, so you can't fit that many people in it.
No, it's a 1-car garage.
Yeah.
Okay.
And you're thinking of doing this, hopefully, this workshop once a month? The night,
Oh, like the drop-in sew kind of thing?
Yes.
I think the max would be once a month. The workshops I've taught in the past have been in other people's homes and also in other locations. So this would just open up a small venue where I could host them without renting space somewhere else.
Okay. Any further questions, concerns, thoughts? Is there anyone else here to speak in reference to this application? You okay? Just gotta make sure we cross all our i's and our t's and dot our i's. Okay.
My only concern was the parking
Mhm.
in the wintertime with, the snow and, how it gets dark so early, like early December or whatever. My only concern.
Okay. So, at this point, we'll close the public hearing unless there's anything else that you feel that needs to be said. Okay. By us closing the public hearing, we can ask you questions, and you can answer them, but you shouldn't be presenting any additional or new topics.
Okay.
Okay, just so you understand what the rules are. Okay. And it gives us a chance to talk. So, thoughts and concerns?
I would like at the moment to limit it to just her as an employee. And if the business goes really well and you wanna hire more people, then we'll have a better idea of parking and how it impacts your neighbors, if at all. So it's limited to you as the employee. And maybe limiting, I can't remember what you call it, I have a very short-term memory. The retreat occasions to 14 times a year. That's once a month plus 2, and that way you can vary it. If you don't have them in the winter, you can have them in better weather.
My understanding in reading that, the 2 non-resident employees, is that's the standard. It says standards for major home occupations.
But they need parking for those. And I don't think she has parking for employees plus retreat people.
Will that be four
That's true, 'cause it's the
parking
next-
spots?
Right.
2 for the house?
And one for each employee, and then you have a potential of 6 people there for retreat. And maybe she has 6 on-site parking, although I suspect people aren't gonna park on her grass, they're gonna park on the street. Even though the regulations technically require that parking be on site, I think because it's so rarely, I don't really have a problem if overflow parks on the street. But if you regularly use up all the on-site for people living there and staff, then everybody who comes for classes and everything has to park on the street. We're basically approving something with no on-site parking. That's all.
Okay,
That would be my suggestion.
all right.
And
Yeah.
seeing as she doesn't intend to have employees at the moment, and it is a small building.
Yeah, but she also has in her narrative there about having people park elsewhere
Right.
in Charlotte.
Am I allowed to clarify that point?
Go ahead.
The sentence in which I say, once my work is in such high demand as to warrant traffic support, is meant to be a bit of a joke.
Nice try, Tony.
So,
No,
quite
what
honestly,
I'm saying is that
if it
she's
does,
concerned about.
if it does
You'll-
get
you'll-
into that matter, I
Right.
will then be able to afford a shuttle service. Until then, I'm not concerned that we will be overwhelming the neighborhood with parking.
Okay.
I don't have a problem if anyone disagrees with me, that's just my opinion.
But you said how many parking spaces? 2?
If there are 2 for the house, and if she had 2 employees, that's another 2. And that would take up the whole paved driveway. That means anybody that comes to the house for a 1-hour lesson would have to park on the street.
Right.
And I think the home occupation is supposed to provide on-site parking. And so that's why I don't have a problem with this, because most of the time she'll have a place to park in the driveway
Right,
for regular.
right. It's gonna be a once a year or?
Well, no,
if-
when
even
she
if it
has her
happens.
retreats, they're gonna park on the street. I mean, But for the people that come to drop things off, to come for a lesson for an hour or two, they can park in the driveway. So the regular business hours, there's on-site parking. But if she had quote-unquote 2 employees, all day long during regular business hours, there would be no on-site parking. And because they're supposed to have on-site parking, I just have a problem approving it.
But there's, from what I'm reading here, there is, sites that are on site, according to the map she's drawn here, she has her 2 existing cars, and then 2 available spots.
Yeah, so that's 4 spaces.
That's 4 spaces.
I just want to point out, in the zoning ordinance, parking requires the spots to be paved.
And that is paved
Well, the driveway's paved.
with 4 spaces.
Right.
Yeah.
So I
Maybe
just-
marked as well.
No, I mean, it's a driveway.
Okay.
But I'm just saying, like,
asking
if
'cause-
there's the application does show the
grass.
overflow parking on the grass, which,
Oh, I'm sorry, I did not
Still,
understand that as
And I
clearly.
doubt many people coming to her house are gonna park on her lawn. They're gonna park on the street.
I mean, it's human nature to park on the street
Right.
in most neighborhoods. Okay.
I mean, I hope her business does go well.
Yes. All right. So and so your thought is to limit it to no
Employee.
non-resident employees
Yeah.
at this point.
At this point,
Um,
because she doesn't have an intent, and then I think we're complying with the rules more. That's all.
all right. Hours of operation. Are we concerned about the hours of operation?
Not for a quilting shop.
Okay.
They're not gonna have raucous parties back there. They're too
I
intent.
don't know.
I
You know
don't
my
know
neighbor.
Precision.
then you're buying that.
Okay, so if we're not concerned about the hours of operation,
This isn't wine and quilting or anything, right?
That's dangerous. I have ended up in the hospital as
Well,
a
there's
sewing injury. I
there's
don't
this
need to.
new thing out now, art.
Oh, yeah,
Art
yeah.
and
The paint,
wine.
the painting
Paint-
and.
paint and wine.
Paint
Yeah.
and,
Oh, yeah.
My wife
plates.
paints and she likes wine.
I've got
That's
artwork in my
why-
house that
As long as you
represents.
drink the wine and not the jar, then you're
You're in good
But
shape.
with sewing machines and rotary plates,
Yeah,
you don't want
right.
to be mixing it. We do chocolate, but we don't do it at night.
Okay. So with that said, we will close the public hearing, or we already did the public
We already
part.
closed it,
So we need a motion.
before you do that, can you just clarify what the hours were that's being allowed, if they are being allowed outside of what's,
The hours she would like are to midnight. And I would recommend we pick a number of times a year. I said 14.
Right.
I don't know
Oh,
if
that's
that's
fair.
appropriate or not.
Yeah. I think that's
Yeah, I would give a little latitude for her to
Yeah.
Rather
Right.
than once per month.
do whatever
like
works
you
Yeah.
said.
for you.
good. Right.
Then
Put
she
one in
can
the
go, when
summer.
she gets blizzarded out in the winter, she can reschedule it for a nicer day.
2 or 3 in June or July, whatever.
Seems
Hopefully.
fair.
and so then the rest of the time, the hours would be as they are in the.
As they are
Right.
stated within the
Right.
zoning ordinance, correct. We find,
Would you
no,
like-
no, it's the special permit checkoff list.
That's it.
Ah, that's what I was, that's what I wanted to make sure. Okay, so, do we wanna make a motion, or I will make the motion and we will go from there?
Yeah, or you can just you can do all the findings before you do the motion.
Okay, so let's go through and make a list of the findings, because there's findings that we have to find. In order to grant a special permit, there are certain requirements we have to perform. Conformance with the provisions of the ordinance of the City of East Hampton. Yes, protection of cities' amenities and abutting properties. Yep. Minimization of traffic and safety impacts, which is a proposed development, which is not, we're not worried about sewage and drainage or wetlands. Adverse effects of the city's resources, not problem. Provisions for off-street loading and unloading of vehicles. You're not gonna be bringing in any truckloads of quilts. Okay?
I'll let you know when I do.
Okay. We're not concerned about the landscaping and vegetative buffers, or vegetative removing. You're not gonna cut down any trees. There's no side yard setbacks that are beyond what's already pre-existing of structure. And there's no pollution, and the measure will constitute a nuisance by reason of unacceptable levels of air or water pollution, excessive noise, visual vagrant structures, and accessories.
None of that.
Just, we have to go through the list so we know that we have covered everything.
Can you, while you're there, can you go through on the home occupation? There's,
Sure, that's
just to make 10.4.
10.4, thank you.
Just look for, just 'cause this is the first one that
Okay,
we're doing.
so for home occupations,
Ever?
Under the major ordinance, yeah.
How exciting.
what's it?
This
is
is
the
our first major.
home
First major,
occupation.
it is.
So just to, because it changed a bit.
Yes, it did. I don't know if that's the
Get to be
updated one.
Oh,
No, it is
the
not.
new ones are here.
Ah. I'm not great like this.
I forgot that it wasn't.
Yeah, I had
New
to find it
amendment.
as well.
So new, it's not
Put it-
even
put it
in the
in.
book.
Not
Oh,
even
I
in
didn't-
the book
I didn't
yet.
do that.
Focus on what I have.
Okay, so for home occupations, we have standard home occupations and standard minor home occupations and standards for major home occupations. Major home occupations must meet the following standards in addition to the standards listed in the previous standards. In case of conflict, the stricter standard applies. No more than 2 non-residential employees shall be employed at the work at the subject property. So, if we're going to limit that,
It
we
says
are
no more than 2, so in this case, we make the motion, we'll just say,
Right, there'll be a
There'll
condition.
be
There'll
a
be a
condition
condition.
of the, I wanna make sure we're all in agreement here. Unless otherwise determined, the zoning board of appeals hours of operation, okay, we've already addressed the hours of operation, because they are beyond what is the scope here. There should be no increase of traffic in, to the, gotta read this again. There shall be no increase of traffic to the in excess of 2 vehicles per hour. During public operations, which you feel that's gonna be fine except for those individual occasions.
and 2 vehicles per hour, if you have 6 over a period of 6 hours, that's 1 vehicle per hour.
Right.
So it's still,
Still all good. Unless otherwise allowed by the board, only class 1 and class 2 vehicles, not have to worry, not getting major deliveries of fabric. And the premises and building in which the major home occupation is conducted shall not be made objectionable or detrimental in any manner. Okay, so no odors, gases, fumes, smog, smoke, or dust. So I think that we are okay. So there we are.
Great, thank you.
You're welcome. Okay, so I will make a motion that we approve the application of Audrey Hevenon of 62 Briggs Street in the city of East Hampton for a major home occupation of a quilting operation and workshop with the conditions,
that there be no outside employees other than the owner of the property, and that she be allowed up to 14 special retreats a year, which would allow her to have operations between 6 a.m. and midnight, up to 14 times a year,
annually.
annually.
Calendar years.
Yes,
Yeah, however you.
yeah, however you wanna say it, but it is June to December.
January to
January.
Short.
I'm exhausted,
Short.
okay? It's a short year.
Was that 6 a.m. to?
midnight, which is, yeah,
Okay,
So
her
that's a motion.
retreats.
that is the motion.
I second it.
Tony seconds. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? So moved. We wish you the best of luck.
Yes.
Thank you very much.
Yeah,
You'll
good
all
luck to you.
receive an invitation to the open house.
Just
Just you'll bring your family.
All right.
Quilts.
Just so you're aware, the decision has to be written and
Yes.
filed with the city clerk, and then there's a 20-day appeal period after that's
Okay.
written, and you'll
For all the
get a-
neighbors that didn't show up and changed their
Right,
mind.
and so,
Okay.
so you will get a notice in the mail once that appeal period ends, and then you'll need to take the written decision and the appeal notice and file it at the registry of deeds.
Okay. And will that paperwork also be what I use to get the official business license, business certificate from the town?
Yes.
Okay. Great, my taxes will need that.
Good luck.
Good luck.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
You're welcome to stay, but if you want.
Do we want to have,
Why don't we, since she's doing other work and
Okay.
she's not here
Okay.
right now,
okay,
Um,
we
she
will
said she-
continue on our way.
and we can grab her after,
All right.
this hearing.
All right, so the next application is Ronald and Sheila, we're gonna try this one. Resitech,
Yeah, that's good.
close enough, okay, of 4 Ketty Street in East Hampton, seeking a variance under section 13.1 of the East Hampton zoning ordinance with regard to the lot frontage requirement for a single-family residence. Subject property is located behind 11 Third Avenue and zoned residential suburban A R15. Okay. Come on up and present your case.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I'll share.
Should be around. Good enough.
Well, there's one missing one.
Thank
One missing one.
Oh. This one isn't signed.
Yeah,
I don't
without
care
the-
if it's
Without the
signed.
letterhead.
I thought it was in the other. Hmm?
Just,
They're still looking.
No, go ahead,
I'll do
go ahead,
that.
and go ahead and say what you wanna say.
Okay, good evening, board and neighbors. We are seeking a variance under section 13.1 with regards to the lot frontage requirements for single-family residence. Subject property is located behind 11 Third Avenue, parcel ID 146-91, in zone residential suburban A R15. We meet the frontage requirement on Everett Street, yet not the potential vehicle access due to the topography, the wetlands, 2 brooks, Mormon Brickyard brooks, and it would be detrimental to the environment along with financial hardship to put a driveway in to access that area. The house you want to build is on the southern end of the parcel. Having access from Palmbrook Drive or Third Avenue would not be a detriment to the public or the environment. We'd like to preserve as much open land as possible from my grandparents' homestead.
if you wanna see a bigger map, we have to
Yeah,
look at
yeah,
that.
bigger
I'm
map.
still trying to figure out where this really is.
Probably if you look at a bigger map,
Yeah, it might be easy.
Mhm.
might be easier.
You know what,
Mhm.
Third Avenue
Yeah,
and from
yep.
Cause, yeah,
There's a map behind you if you wanna see it in reference to the rest of the city.
that's,
Um,
Oh, God.
Okay, so it's right in there.
Yeah.
Okay. Alright, that's fine. Now we know where I am.
this is, Pembroke.
Okay.
I have it upside down. This is right here. This is Third Avenue, Pembroke. We have the frontage over here.
Up of Everett Street with the frontage.
but we'd like to put a single-family dwelling at the southern portion.
Which one is your mother's house?
This
Right
one,
here.
And so that's the parcel,
then this is the right of way.
So,
so you're not gonna access it from Plumbrook, you're gonna
Either or.
either or, okay. Cause I went down there and Plumbrook, it looks very nice piece to have a house there at the end. Very
Yeah.
high and dry and,
Yeah, that's where we're thinking of doing it.
Yeah, because that's the Plumbrook circle.
And this is just a piece that we're adding to my mother's lot.
okay, so that's going to her property, that's,
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah.
That little section, because the shed was actually on this parcel, which shed that belongs to this house. So we're making this
We'd
bigger.
like to, we haven't done that,
And we have frontage over here
okay. On Everett
on
Street.
Everett Street, 100 feet.
But you
But
can't
you
get
can't
it.
get there because this is all wetlands.
Mhm.
It's two brooks,
Mm.
Mhm.
and so there's no way you can get from where the frontage is, put a driveway in to get to where we wanna put our house.
Mm.
Well, I read the definition of lot frontage, and it says frontage shall provide both rights of access and potential vehicular access. So it doesn't say you have to have your vehicular access on your frontage. So I don't have a problem with this variance at all.
Is that for like fire department? and-
Well, no, it's just the definition of lot frontage. It
Okay.
says you have to have frontage, but it doesn't say
You have
it
to
shall
use it.
provide vehicular access.
Right.
Yeah.
It says potential.
Right.
So, and I think the fire department's comment said as long as they had access.
Yeah, there's a
They
fire
didn't care.
hydrant right over here, actually.
To clarify that, we did, the reason why it's coming to the board is because when the applicant had applied for a building permit, and the building inspector had come to the planning department, we looked at the decisions and talked to the city solicitor. Case law had shown that potential vehicular access can't be illusory, and that when you have something like a limited access highway and frontage along a limited access highway, you can't count that as potential vehicular access because the access, you can't actually exit from the highway to the property. So through that, the parcel was landlocked, even though it had the frontage, the solicitor determined that it was illusory, which is hence the need for the variance.
Okay. So we have to look at it as though it does not have enough frontage.
No, it has the minimum frontage distance, but it doesn't have that potential vehicular access.
Okay.
And if the potential vehicular access, because the way the definition is worded says the potential vehicular access comes across that frontage, it doesn't say that the frontage and then potential vehicular access from elsewhere. So that's what the variance is
Okay.
to nitpicky, but,
I would disagree with the attorney, but he's the attorney, so.
I mean, that was provided in the
Yeah.
the memo,
Mhm.
so.
Okay. All right. Questions?
Well, does anybody,
That's where I'm going
Yeah.
next. Okay. Is there anyone here who would like to speak in reference to this application? Anyone? No? 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 No?
Okay.
Okay. So you're gonna move that way. What is the actual frontage on Plumbrook?
That's actually,
There's-
that's,
there's no-
not for ours, it's for Gruber and Metowski to have the frontage. See, this is a right of way, 20 feet,
Okay.
and the 20 feet is actually on Metowski's, and, the frontage is actually on Metowski's and Gruber's. So,
But you have an easement.
We have it over here, we have 100 feet over.
Right, but do you then have a right of way or an easement to get across that property?
That's what
Yeah,
we
Yeah.
just
in
gave
the,
you.
That's in here?
Yeah.
Okay.
We just gave it today, so.
Yeah.
Okay.
We just gave it to the,
Okay.
yes. Yeah.
Okay. And at that point, would your preference be to come off of Plumbrook, or would you wanna come right up from Third Avenue in that right away?
Probably off of Plum Brook.
How wide is your easement off of Plumbrook?
20 feet.
20 feet?
Mhm.
So that's more than wide enough for a driveway.
Correct.
The easement goes perpendicular to the,
Well, to come off of Plum Brook, it would actually cross it.
Yeah, it would just be a 20-foot section of that. It would just come straight across
It
20
would just be
feet.
wide enough for a
right, but
driveway.
then they have, sorry, the easement is,
The easement is
right,
this way.
so 20 foot, I think they have more than,
Yeah, there's
The
another
road- the-
plan somewhere.
the rotary is more than 20 feet wide, where their easement intersects
Yeah, it's
the street there.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it is wider, there was another.
And there's a scale right here. It
But
says
it's
rough-
at least
roughly
20
40
feet.
Oh, yeah.
It's at least 20 feet, and that's more than wide enough for a
More-
driveway.
Right.
It's more
To
than-
please the fire department, it's not like you're trying to do 8 feet.
No. No, we wanna make sure that, you know.
I think this distance is like 56 feet or something.
Yeah, I mean, if you look at,
Tractor scale,
if
yeah.
you look at the scale there, I mean, if an inch is equal to 80 feet, that's roughly, 40, 45 feet.
Yeah,
That's just a ballpark there.
yeah.
So,
It's at least 40 feet,
At
over
least
40
40
feet, yeah.
so there's no problem there having a 20-foot easement that runs straight across there off of Plumbrook. Okay. All right, anything else? Questions, concerns? Okay, in order for us to grant a variance, that is the highest, exception, or whatever you wanna call it, that the zoning board has the right to do. And we are required by law to have, to meet 4 criterias in order to have a variance. You looking those up, Fonzie?
Yeah,
You have them right there? Ah,
good.
you are.
It's faster than I.
Okay, so we're gonna go through these, there's the 4 criteria just to make sure that we have everything covered. The variance must be with respect to a particular parcel of land and or an existing building on the land. Well, it is a particular piece of land, we're aware of that. Now, I do have a question. The map that you have, and I don't know whether it is just because of the way the property line is it 2 pieces of property?
No, this is all one now.
It's
See,
all
that-
one?
That's an old one.
Okay,
That was, yeah, that was owned by Banus when we bought it.
okay,
So
The,
this is the latest and greatest, or whatever.
Okay.
right, but it hasn't been endorsed yet by the planning board, because when they brought it to the planning board to be endorsed, that merged those lots, they said, you don't have frontage, we're gonna stamp it as not a buildable lot. And so
okay.
now when you grant the variance to the frontage requirements, they can take this plan to the planning board, who can stamp it, approval not required, because it meets the frontage requirements and has the minimum lot size for the district.
Okay,
At that point, they can bring it to the registry, and then it becomes
a buildable lot,
a buildable lot.
okay.
Thank you.
I just wanna make sure, I saw the line there earlier, and I wanted to make sure we were still all on one piece of property. Okay, there must be a circumstance related to soil condition, shape, or topography especially affecting such land or structure, but not affecting generally the zoning district in which it is located. Well,
That's about Yeah, that's the whole lot.
Yeah, so you're pretty much, it's the whole lot. Literal enforcement of the zoning ordinance would involve substantial hardship, financial or otherwise, to the petitioner or applicant. Well, if we don't grant it, you can't build a house.
Right.
It's a hardship.
There's your hardship.
Hardship, yeah.
Okay, desirable relief may be granted if there will not be substantial detriment to the public good or nullification or substantial derogation from the intent and purpose of this ordinance. Well, the idea there is that we want to make sure that there's a 100-foot minimum road frontage requirement throughout the city for that reason. That people don't have a bunch of flag lots and the fire department can't get to places and things like that. And that's why when we have these applications, we send out notice to the other boards, so they have a chance to say, hey, look, this is good, this isn't good. And that's why we're asking so much about what your frontage is gonna be, where do you really want it? Because when the decision is written, we wanna make sure that we stipulate that the access and right-of-way will be from Plumbrook to this location, as opposed to leaving it to your decision. So, speak now, or forever hold your peace.
Plumbrook.
Yeah.
Okay, and that's just so we are aware of exactly where it's coming from and everything like that, and there's no back and forth at a later date. Okay, so with those requirements having been met, Jamie, have we covered all the criteria there?
Mhm.
And you have everything well documented?
Yeah.
Or documented enough? Okay, so, is there any other questions, concerns, thoughts? All right, let's see what we can do here. All right, where's my notes? You can have this back. There we go. I make a motion to approve the request for a variance by Ron and Sheila Rozustek. Am I getting better at it? Of 4 Ketty Street in East Hampton, seeking a variance under section 13.1 of the East Hampton zoning ordinance with regard to the lot frontage requirement for a single-family residence. The property is located behind 11 3rd Avenue and zoned residential suburban, AR15. And do I need to put the stipulations in there, or you've got them covered?
You already found them, so you can just
Okay.
make the motion to approve.
All, second?
Second.
Everybody else, okay. So all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay.
Sorry,
So moved.
Who seconded?
I did.
Okay,
Thank you.
you're so welcome.
And similar,
Thank you for
it's
doing this, Sharon.
when the
Yeah,
decision's
there's a
written,
lot.
there'll be a 20-day appeal period.
Picture.
Oh, yeah.
And you'll get a copy of the decision in the mail
Try to blow it up.
and a subsequent
It just gets
uh,
covered, so.
letter from the city clerk saying that the appeal period's ended. Once you get that appeal, you do need to file the decision and the notice at the Hampshire County Registry of Deeds in order for this variance to legally be attached to the property and run with the land. So you're not running into problems down the road.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay. So I'll go get the,
Okay. So, we still keep the meeting.
Yeah.
This chicken thing to go quickly.
Is this the health department?
Yes.
Facility?
Yeah, this is
I
the
think
chicken.
we asked her to come.
Yeah, we asked Jackie to come.
Did you bring any eggs?
I'm hungry, so I'm talking about chicken is gonna go quick, okay? I have not had dinner yet.
is on her way.
Okay.
Can I make a suggestion, if we can do it, to do with, now that we call home occupations major, my brother and sister-in-law live there.
The meeting's still going on, just if we can have the conversations outside, I'm sorry to.
They got a notice, they were in 500 feet of the quilter, and they got a notice that a major home occupation, and my brother calls me up and, what is this? And I said, it's a quilting
Got everything?
business.
Yeah.
Oh, so maybe after the word major home occupation in parentheses, quilting business, or just,
How are we being recorded?
Yeah.
the term major makes it
Yes,
sound
we are,
like
yeah.
there's something
Yeah, it sounds like that, yeah.
big going
Yeah,
on.
Sorry.
I got the same, I had the same feeling, the idea, because when last week, someone came in, what is this major home occupation? Are we gonna have like 40 people living in this house? And I'm like, okay, yeah, I could see how you could interpret that differently. So I will try to be more clear when I send out the.
Just a
the-
description of
and
what the
letter.
business is, because once
Yeah.
I said it was a quilting business, oh, okay.
Yeah, so I will,
It's not like a brewery or anything
No,
like
no,
that.
but the term major makes
Right,
it sound
yeah.
like,
Yeah, yeah.
Was that one of my neighbors that got the abuttal notice?
yeah, my brother, he lives on Church Street. I don't know how he got a notice, but,
Lee?
pardon me?
Lee?
No, Bush.
Oh, I don't even know those people. I would've
Well, they
sent
don't
him a
care.
little thing about
Once
it,
I
so they
told
would
him what
know.
it was, he said, well, I don't care. It was just the term major.
It goes out much more
Yeah.
extensively than I.
And I said, I thought they got the notice because of this couple, because their land abuts Church Street. This couple's land, but he said, no, it was your notice.
It was just the word
The-
major.
The dead end part, if you go down Admiral to Church and take a left,
well, because it's,
I know where Oak is, I can't figure out where Church is.
it's past Briggs. It's parallel to Briggs, the next one over. There's like Clark and Briggs and Church.
It's just, if any part of a parcel is within 300 feet of your parcel line,
Then they're on the
then
list.
they get that abutter notification.
And the computer figures it out.
Oh, I'm
So,
sure it does,
yeah.
yeah.
So it's, you know,
Yeah,
sometimes
because
it's a
it's-
little
Yeah, it could
absurd,
be
but there was a stack of postcards about this
Yeah,
thick
it's
between
just
the.
much-
this big. That's
I
all it
only-
takes.
I only sent out 10 to like people that I know
Right.
who
It's usually
touch
just-
my property, so.
It's
Mm.
usually
figure
just the
them out.
immediate abutters who actually
Live
care,
there,
but
yeah.
sometimes not.
I'm glad I didn't know that until now.
All right, so, we're looking to talk chicken, as opposed
Good
to talk turkey.
evening, good evening, board.
Hello there.
I'm Jackie Duty, your health agent, and you've called me here to talk chicken.
Yes.
Yeah,
Okay, so
I
let's talk.
suggested at a previous meeting, because every time we have a special permit for chickens,
Yeah.
the neighbors come out and get all upset about the noise, the odor, and I'm sorry, I don't think of 6 hens as creating noise or odor. And you have experience with them.
I
which
sure do.
None of us do. And I wondered if it would be appropriate if you could write us a short little letter
Mm-hmm.
explaining your experience with chickens.
Noise.
The noise, the odor, whatever, and that you, if there's ever an issue, you get called in. And we could keep it in our files so the next time we have an application for chickens, we can refer to it and explain to the neighbors the reality of a neighbor of theirs having chickens.
Got it.
Kind of,
I'd be happy to do that,
like
sure.
a chicken per square foot ratio to it. We know what the ordinance says.
Right, are you thinking
Okay.
of changing that?
No, but what happens is when we have a property that is less than the minimum requirement for 6 chickens, we just, as a rule of thumb, we've used a simple ratio of, well, if you're allowed 6 chickens on this size property, your property is 50% as large, so you can have 3. But is there technically a minimum that you need for 1? And then is it a
In other
sloping
words, to
scale?
keep the chicken happy and to keep the odor and flies and manure
Right.
under control and to keep everybody happy.
Correct.
Right.
Just so we're all.
I don't have really a rule of thumb on that, but I certainly have some ideas and I can
Yeah.
put those into the memo.
We're assuming that in general, people with chickens are not a problem, or that's my assumption. Only the careless homeowner who would be careless with probably other parts of their yard, whatever. It's my assumption that they would be bad chicken owners, but in general,
Yeah, well, that makes
most
sense.
people who want chickens take care of them, and they are not a problem. That's my assumption, and
I think your assumption is absolutely correct.
okay.
Yeah.
And long before I came to East Hampton, which is now 4 years, I had a lot of problems with chickens. I worked in 4 or 5 or 6 hill towns, and the problems with chickens always came from roosters. And occasionally it came from people who just let their chickens all out, you know, and they'd go into the neighbor's yard and the neighbor didn't like chickens in their yard. But primarily it is roosters. They're dangerous around children. They're very noisy. They wake people up at 3 o'clock in the morning or keep people up all night. And that is where I got the complaints. And so you've already solved that by not allowing roosters, except where they're on a legitimate farm, which is very large. And we have farms in East Hampton with roosters, and I don't even get complaints about those. So I don't really think we have any issues in East Hampton, and I think you're correct. It is mostly a matter of perception. And we are in a city. We're not in a rural area. In the rural areas, no one ever raised a hackle at all about somebody getting chickens. What they saw in that was free eggs. And here, everybody, you know, we're not a rural community. People aren't used to farm animals. They have different ideas about what that means. And most of the time, they're wrong in my experience. Chickens are pretty peaceful animals. It's hard with 6 chickens to build up enough manure for it to be a problem. If you're a really, really sloppy, dirty person that doesn't take good care of your chickens, it could be a problem. And then I would address it under the my nuisance regulation. But I haven't had a single complaint about any of that. So I think we're good. We've got 25 permitted chicken owners in East Hampton since that regulation came out or that ordinance was created. And there are many more people in East Hampton prior to that had chickens and still have chickens. And there's a few chickens I run into that probably aren't grandfathered and should be permitted. So we've got probably 40 or 50 people in town. And then another 6 or so farms. I would guess there's probably about 50 or 60 chicken owners in the boundaries of this city. Not a single complaint. So,
Okay, we would like
5.5
that.
square miles, that's not bad.
No, we would like just a short little letter to that effect, so
Yeah.
the next time we have a public hearing and the neighbors go nuts, because it's something they don't know, we'll have something to refer to.
okay.
No, it's the fear, for lack of a better
Sure,
term.
and I'm happy to make people, you know, to reassure people that that isn't really gonna be an issue.
Okay.
You know, people do say that it'll lower their property values. I can't say that that will or won't. In my opinion, I would love to live next door to somebody with a chicken. That would raise the property value on my, because again, free eggs, and they're kind of cool. You know, chickens are cool. I would personally own them, but my lifestyle is such that, you know, like right now, I'm not home to care for them. So when I'm retired, I'll probably get myself some chickens and have myself some free eggs. You know, there's no such thing as a free egg because it costs a fortune to buy the chickens, to keep the chickens, to buy the chicken coop, to feed the chickens and all that. But they're nice animals to have, nice peaceful creatures.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah,
And they
that's
eat ticks.
excellent. Yes.
Forgot about that. I will put that in the letter. They're good tick eaters.
Was there anything in the ordinance that the board wanted to review, look at, change? Were there any powers in the ordinance, Jackie, that you wanted to see enhanced?
Well, you and I had talked about this some time ago, and that was in the context of that the board might be considering not having a special permit process for chickens. And if that were the case, then I might have some other recommendations, but absent that, no. No, I don't think that I have any concerns at all.
Knock on wood, we've been exempt from chickens lately.
Other than the lawsuit that's still ongoing.
Wait until the spring.
Now, though, those are not free eggs.
No.
Would that be Williston Avenue?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, is that right? Is there a lawsuit? I did my very best to work with that homeowner and explain that it wasn't gonna really be a big issue. She
mean, I've
she
read-
did come to me 3 or 4 times prior to your hearing, and I just was unable to convince her that it really wasn't gonna be an issue.
I mean, anybody can have 2 dogs, and 2 dogs to me
Yeah,
would be
they're
a
much,
lot
much noisier than
than 6 chickens.
Yep. And we'll make more smell.
Oh, yeah,
I mean,
yeah.
that's.
Yeah.
But, you know, if you keep a clean house, you're gonna have a clean yard, you're not gonna have a problem.
Most of the time, that's true.
Most of the time.
Mhm.
Okay. And it's that whole well-maintained philosophy.
And I honestly think, I mean, people have been concerned, and as you see, you know, the economy shrinks a little, and people they get tight, and money is scarce, and bad things happen to people in that kind of economy, and everybody wants to know how they can be self-reliant. And I saw the whole kind of chicken thing as people's like gut response to, I need to do something to make sure nothing terrible. I need to have my own food. I want to grow my own garden, have my own chickens. And I think that this will pass. I think you're going to see fewer chicken.
Yeah. The fad is gonna go away.
Yeah, it is kind a little bit of a fad out of that sense of desperation
Fear.
with the economy shifting, and
Yeah.
things are getting better, and people are going to say, you know, I don't want to have to hire a chicken sitter to go to the Cape for a week. You know, people are going to see that it is a responsibility, and it was charming at first, and then there'll be some that keep chickens and others that don't. So,
Yeah, that's a good point.
Okay.
Thank you.
but
All
thank
right.
you. You're very welcome. Nice
Thank
to
you
meet
very
with you all.
much. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Jane.
So at this point, we will close the zoning board meeting. I am not available for the next meeting, which is tentatively scheduled for February 11th on Thursday. So we may have the meeting or we can reschedule.
Probably better to reschedule. I mean, I think I'm pretty much available. Only time I'm out is in March.
Okay. So if we're looking to reschedule, do we have a time and date that we feel would work better?
Why not?
Thursdays, I am busy for the next 6 to 8 weeks. I have a course I need to take.
Tuesday or when? It's a, you know,
Wednesdays
Whatever
will work.
works for you
Wednesdays work well. Is there a
I have no
room that's available on a Wednesday, Jamie?
Okay, so the next meeting is scheduled for the 11th, so looking at the 10th.
Or the 9th, Tuesday, if that works for,
So I'm just gonna,
I don't have any, you know, I don't
so we
work
just
late.
do in this conference room, doesn't look like anything is scheduled in this conference room on the 10th, the
Okay.
Wednesday, the 10th.
That's fine with me.
It should be available.
Okay.
February 10th?
February 10th. I mean, I don't have anything on my calendar currently.
So 6:30?
6:30. Here we go.
And I
It is
will,
so.
double check with, the city clerk and make sure that there's nothing that I'm not seeing here, or
Okay.
nothing that's sort of been scheduled between, that, like, it's not on the calendar.
If there is, I would just suggest that you send an email to us and give us options, like
Yeah,
Yeah.
a day or
Yeah,
two, so
that'll
we
work,
could,
but-
we could get back to you and say the 8th or the
yeah.
13th.
But-
Just Thursday you have a problem with, right?
Thursdays. Yeah.
That way you kill 2 birds with 1 stone, you know?
Okay. So at this point, we will adjourn the meeting. Motion to adjourn?
Make a motion to adjourn.
I second it.
Second? All in favor?
Aye.